Okay, guys, so let me introduce myself. So as Vera mentioned, I'm the academic director of IE Ripple Gateway program, where we teach students to, it's a mix of entrepreneurship, product, and technical course, where we teach them to identify the market opportunities to build the products on XRPL, and then also execute these products to the market fit stage. And my experience, my background is coming from innovation management. So I'm working more than 20 years there, and around, time flies, like already 9 years in the blockchain space. And my area, like my point of curiosity is always like how to bridge from research or like the innovational concepts into real production, and what are the bottlenecks, the problems, and the points we need like to solve and to pay attention across researchers, across builders, and across regulators and people who work in compliance, basically. Okay, so today I'm gonna talk about bridging innovation to production, let's say, on the example of agentic payments in the decentralized environment. So why I'm choosing this topic is for two reasons. So first of all, I think that we as a blockchain industry, we cannot ignore what's happening in the AI space, and it's super important for us now to integrate the AI technology with blockchain, because basically, what is a typical smart contract, right? So it's like deterministic, like kind of like handling written code with a certain workflow, right? And now when we have like these agentic systems being developed, so we of course cannot ignore it, and we have to think like how to implement like the work of agents into the smart contracts, into the like programmable logic, so that it all works in a trustless manner. And the second point, which is like more applied for today's topic, is that agents now also are like autonomous economic actors, right? So they can pay to each other or like to traditional services through API, and kind of like act on behalf of humans and companies. So, and we see already some positive development in this space, right? So we see already some agent payment infrastructures. We saw that last week, Ripple also like shipped XRPL AI Starter Kit with being integrated to X402 protocol, which was originally developed by Coinbase. But still, the volume is not here. So there was like a report in March 2026 by A16Z saying that only around 1.6 million per month is the volume of decentralized agent payments. And it was like a call for like, okay, so why there has been so many development on the infrastructure level, why like the volume is not here? And understanding this gap and what we should be like focusing on is today's topic. Okay, so first of all, like again, for any kind of like innovation to be successful, especially in the payments and in the blockchain sector, there are like four main pillars we should be looking at. So the first one is, of course, like the protocol level, then the integration, right? So which means like with the solution has to be integrated within the systems that business and users already run. The next one is regulation, and here I will bit explain, because on one hand we can say, okay, regulation is something that is not in our control. So here it means that we should be engaging with regulators and compliance teams to build the right expectations. So now I will show you one of the well-known use cases which demonstrate the importance of it. And the last one is the user experience, right? Which is also very relevant for the blockchain and for digital assets, that users don't deal with technology or the asset type underneath. So yeah, well, we have seen this use case before. So in fact, guys, as you remember that the whole excitement of blockchain technology in the like real sector, in the business sector, was that now we can use like the programmable logic to solve the main trust point in business, which is the payments, right? Because what is the main trust point in business is that, okay, will I be paid by this company on time if I execute my work well or I deliver my products on time? And we did basically manage to solve this problem on the infrastructure level, but where it failed is the settlement. And it failed basically for two reasons. So number one is that the decentralized digital assets, they didn't get regulated as a form of money, right? So now the stable coins, they are regulated as an asset, but not as money. So if you go to like a flower shop now across the street, they will be totally lost if you tell them, okay, I will get, you will get paid in stable coins. The second is like for the first reason, it's like a follow-up, but the first reason is that they were not integrated in the mainstream systems, right? Like, so we don't have like all these like banking applications, etc., where they could work with stable coins or other form of like programmable digital assets. And yes, also like to admit that there are some workaround cases, let's call it so. For example, for cross-border payments, right? Because for cross-border payments, we don't have here the point of trust of the kind of like, yeah, for the payment itself. Because if in the traditional business logics, smart contracts, like I want to have it like fully trustless environment because I want to make sure that I will be paid if I execute my liabilities on the contract well. While in the case of like cross-border payment, basically the solutions that came with Ripple and others, and we have one startup which is an alumni of the XRPL program working on this, is that like, okay, the stable coin is not money, but it can be like as a regulated settlement layer. And for example, in cross-border payments, we're using like the payment trails, right? Which is like now on a front. Yeah, actually, I shouldn't have market designs. So it's kind of like in process, right? We see already some adoption. There are also some business challenges because you need to have liquidity to have it settled fast. But this is how we can work here. But again, it doesn't fully, it's not fully trusted, decentralized, so it doesn't solve that problem here. So now let's take a look into the agentic payment. So if you take a look how and why human or a company works well within the like financial system and the payment systems, is that first of all, like we have clear authority, right? Of like we have systems which are able to recognize who authorized the payment. Second is the identity, right? Because the user were like, oh, KYC, same as companies, and we're so-called bankable, right? So we're integrated into the financial banking system. And the third one is accountability. So we bear liability, a company reconcile the books, and it's easy again, like to basically spot who was in charge of what process and whom we need to sue if something happens. By default, if you take a look at the AI agents, so now we're thinking, okay, we need to give AI agents the tools to pay. So what are we facing here by default? That agents act on its own decisions. They can be manipulated or jailbroken. They act without verified identity, and then like they settle autonomously the transactions, but don't have a clear liability. Now let's take a look at how these 3 points are now being solved and what is still missing and what are the gaps that we should be paying attention to. So first of all, let's take a look at how blockchain fits into the example of, for example, agentic payments, right? And it fits here like very well because like, as I said again, agents, by the default of their architecture, they tend to get jailbroken. So whatever you prompt them, there is always a chance that it still basically misses or misbehaves your prompting. So if we have, for example, agent with one signature, and then we have like a policy engine and a cosigner, for example, which bounds the agents and gives like the limits of spending, for example. And this is like a second signature, then even if agent is jailbroken, right, based on the prompt, it still has like deterministic rules here, which it will not be able to surpass because the quorum will not be met. So, and this is kind of like on the first glance, it's a very simple and well-working solution for the authority part. The problems that we're facing here, so let's go through these like 4 pillars that we said. On a protocol level, I'm marking it green because really we have lot of advancement here, and I wouldn't say there are like too many, critical improvements needed here. On the UX, yeah, there are already some first attempts on the application, but if you see at a bigger scale, there is no really clean, not like grant or reward flow for agentic, basically, payments for these kind of systems, if you think about like the blockchain developments. Same for integration, which is even more critical here. So the payment approval systems, that this technology is not wired here. And then on the regulation, there are actually some first steps from Europe, or from this like AI Act, which already assume that the human can intervene and be like reliable of what agent is, of what agent is doing. Then like second point is identity, and this is one of the most criticals here, and one of the most interesting areas actually to work on. Because we have, let's say, like the principal, the company, we have the agent, and we have some counterparty, right? So the way it has to work is that the principal has to have an identity which has to be linked to an agent identity, and then the counterparty has to be able to verify those transactions. We have already some solutions in the centralized world. Like, for example, the one of Visa, which is linked to your Visa account, and then like the 82, and which are both of FIDO Alliance. So there are already some separate solutions that can provide like identities for these pieces of the equation. And then also there is like ERC 8004 technology on Ethereum, which is like a ID for the agents. There are already some 10K agents. It's very low traction there, but still being deployed. But again, like, so the problem we see that we have like kind of like fragmented standards here. And if we already have them developed on a protocol level, we don't have, again, like a clear unified user experience applications, which can allow us like to grant or verify the agent identity and to link like the user with agent identity. On the integration level, we see that payment systems still require traditional KYC, and they like reject this kind of like new attestations. So no integration is currently done with the traditional payment systems. And then like for the regulation, there is now not yet like a cross-border know your customer plus know your agent recognition, which will allow us to make like and to make the system work with the cross-border payments. And then the last one is the accountability, right? So again, like very straightforward flow. So agent payment, we have like programmable settlement, and we have audit trail on chain, right? If the payment was done, let's say like the stable coins. And it hits like basically the wall of these like three pillars of like accounting, liability, and supervisor audit. So yeah, so let me go through them. So for example, on the first of all, again, let's go to the on the protocol here. It's smart kind of like yellow because we have like some early template of record of agent actions, but we don't have again like the systems here. I will just summarize them all three because they're really interconnected here. We don't have like any sort of like interface or convenient tools and the privacy preserving tools for the auditors to be able to review and to monitor this kind of payments. And again, like the lack of like clarity of regulation here and all this like integration of the system is like, okay, I have this working, but if you merge it together with the identity, then like accountability is not really clear. Because like basically who is in charge, like, and whom do I sue by the current regulations if something goes wrong, if the fraudulent payment has been made? So do I sue like a user or like a developer, or like maybe it's like a fault of agent model itself, etc., etc. So to conclude on this, guys, is like what are the three like areas, let's say, like that each of the kind of like groups and they're quite intersected, to be honest. can work on. So for the researchers, I think that here there's still like interesting areas to work on, and there are already some advancements, but in my opinion, not yet mature enough. Is the first one is like linking principal, company, and agent identity. The second is like scope delegation for agencies, like bounding the agents and all the yeah, it actually can also be, you know, like cross-connected with the fourth one. So to bound them in a trustless manner, how to execute the payment transaction, and at the same time, to have like the verifiable AI interface inside the smart contract execution. And the fourth one is privacy preserving verifiable provenance, so that like the regulators, for example, they can have like the system which is like integrated with the current like accounting, financial, with their like systems that would allow them to recognize who is accountable for different transactions and to have like the monitoring and the ongoing monitoring execution of such transactions. Yeah, then for the builders, I think that interoperability is still now one of the biggest challenges. So decentralized ledger and more like even, here I wanted to highlight that it's not only about working on the like decentralized alone like tools, like for example, decentralized IDs, etc. But also if we can, for example, remember like the first flow, right? That if we can bound in a decentralized manner with multiple signatures, for example, the agent behavior, we can also find some interesting use cases how to assist the current, those like existing centralized agent payment and digital identity protocols and bound them with the whole blockchain technology. And then the second is, yeah, to keep building the solutions for stablecoin payouts into the company financial systems. And on the regulator side, and this again, guys, so we're not regulators here, right? So we cannot like affect some of them, but it is really important to work with policy experts, right? And this is where we saw like where many startups, for example, in this like stable coins and like programmable payments logics like failed because they were a little bit, you know, not having enough runway and being like, you know, confident that, okay, now the regulations will come, let's build some supply chain based, you know, like programmable payment platform. And then it just didn't happen because of this. So for regulators, I think that things are important to observe and for them that to clarify is that clear liability for agentic payments linked to the users, supervisor readable audit and compliance artifacts. And then I put it a bit like separately, but still like digital assets as a payment method and cash equivalent in accounting. So this is, I think that something we have to observe if there are like some signs of it, because this will give us a huge push in the whole, you know, kind of like application of blockchain in the company, in the business flow sector, and for sure it will open like a big horizon for a lot of new application opportunities. And yeah, guys, just to conclude and put it all together. So speaking of such use cases, agentic payments is like when authority, identity, and accountability composes across protocol, integration, regulation, and user experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Do you have any questions?
You have time to check what was published and XRPL with Sport 2 electric.
Yeah, I did mention it in the very beginning.
That what's the?
It's basically, yeah, to allow the payments. So under that like protocol, to allow the payments in RLUSD, which is great, which is a great step.
So what's missing between what was published that week and what you?
No, again, so here the problem was solved on a protocol and infrastructure layer, right? And again, there are already some good advancements in the centralized even world, right? For example, like Visa, they are having that there is like an identity which is linked to your Visa account, right? Visa card account or a bank account. What I'm saying is that like what is missing is the interoperability between them. So for example, like for the more broader use cases, okay, I have it like now solved within Visa, so I can authorize Visa to buy like $100 maybe subscriptions, right? But if I want to integrate it on a broader scale, like, and if I want to have like a broader like ecosystem of applications, I need to have like more unified basically standards and interoperable. And then like second is that now, for example, I see there is some demand from companies, and some of them are really like large companies that are saying, okay, so now we see that we want to automate some of the flows we have in our business operations with the AI agents. And they have the same fears. They say, okay, so it would be great that, for example, if we could bound the agents and we could execute some of the payments in a programmable manner, right? Which is again like a great path for interconnecting blockchain with together with AI systems. So, and if you go to this like like already kind of like solution, then we have already a lot of missing pillars. Again, like integration with financial systems, like with financial applications, regulations, how do you manage this like cross-border accountability, etc. Because also, like for example, for these and those kind of things. So currently, what we have at the moment is that it's like small payments, basically use cases. Okay, I allow my agent to buy some tickets or pay a subscription, for the streaming service, whatever. But if you if you want to scale it to some kind of like bigger and more, like serious use cases like enterprises, for example, this is where there is like completely no clarity yet.
Thank you. So I have a question now.
Yeah, I have a super provocative comment. Here we're talking about the agent. I will not bring my opinions at the moment, but before all the AI of the last term, because one of the issue I have is the definition of AI as a general thing, because banks already, well, everyone has codes running on the phone that executes a transaction and everything, doesn't have a probabilistic evaluation as AI is doing, because depending on when you run, you will get different results. But if we go in the normal settings, so the non-AI, nowadays we talk the pre-AI era, I mean, there are the legislation of if your bank app screws up, has an error in the code, and who's faulty, who's liable. Because it becomes a comment from my side, and I would like to see the feedback. Like, this is just code that runs and just gives you a probabilistic output. So it's not something new, at least in my opinion, but it becomes something that is really the requirement of creating new laws, regulation, and everything, when what this new thing is, it's just a small variation of what already.
Yeah, very good question, very good point. And I agree with you that if you simplify it, right, that basically now we're talking about, okay, so you have a piece of software, and like we all have been using software before, right? So why are we saying that we need a separate identity solution, right, for a piece of software, which was never an issue before? And yeah, it is an interesting question. And to be honest, like it's not something that I have been kind of, initiating from my side here. And I can only assume what is the answer, right? Because like I see that there has been a lot of like already like discussions among the regulator basis as well, right? So that, yeah, like the agents, they basically need to have this sort of like identity, at least like on a technical and on the traceability level. And I think, yeah, I don't know how to answer it 100% correctly. I can only assume that probably this, like the AI agent systems are kind of like more complicated, more, like intelligence and autonomous than traditional software. Because like, you see, the problem is like all the traditional software is by default is kind of like deterministically written by the code, while the agent can, it has like some kind of like more freedom, though it is also within some context and prompting as well. So yeah, it's an interesting question, but I don't think that I can answer it. And, like definitely, because it's not something that I came up with. It is something that is already being discussed. So why do they think that it does require an AD? Yeah, I don't know. Probably because, yeah, as I said, it's kind of like another level of software which we just put. Yeah, interesting.
Okay.